President of the New York State Bar Association, Seymour W. James, Jr. The New York State Attorney General, Eric T. Schneiderman. The Chief Judge of the State of New York, Jonathan Littman. The ordained ceremony will now begin.
Well, now that you're all seated, I'd ask you to please rise for the presentation of the flags.
Detail, halt! Left, face! Present, halt!
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now ask Michelle Perry Belches to come up for America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Forward, halt! Rifle T, right shoulder, halt! Right, face! Mark time, march! Forward,
you can sit down. Welcome to the Court of Appeals, and welcome to Law Day 2013. The Law Day theme this year is Realizing the Dream, Equality for All, obviously so fundamental to our society, to our system of justice, and to our society. We're honored to have with us today the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the State of New York, our great Attorney General, Eric T. Schneiderman. And our outstanding President of the New York State Bar Association, Seymour James. The program today, which I hope you'll enjoy, will start with Law Day remarks. I will give my remarks, then the Attorney General, and then President James. After that, I will turn over the program to our terrific Chief Administrative Judge, A. Gail Prudenti, who with Judge Lawrence Marks and Judge Fern Fisher will give out the Merit Performance Awards and the Garfinkel Essay Awards. I would introduce to you today in our house, the court is sitting in the front row as usual in seniority order, and that is the Senior Associate Judge Victoria Graffio, Susan Phillips-Reed, Robert Smith, Eugene Piggott, and our newest Associate Judge, Judge Jenny Rivera. And we hope in the very, very, very near future, like next week, to be able to introduce you to our most new, or newest, or really the newest Associate Judge. I won't name her because we don't take anything for granted here at the Court of Appeals. But I expect you all have a sense of who it might be. I do want to introduce, there are some distinguished guests with us. I could introduce everyone in the room, but I'll just introduce a few people. First, no Law Day would be, Law Day without Mayor Jennings here. We're so happy to have you. And the Solicitor General of the State of New York, Barbara Underwood. And the chair of the Judiciary Committee of the Assembly, and I might say on the remarks that I'm going to give shortly, has been so instrumental in the particular area that I'm going to talk about, Helene Weinstein. And the counsel to Speaker Silver, someone known very, very well to us in the judiciary, Judge Jim Yates. And there are just two other people that I'd want to introduce to you. Two district attorneys, very prominent district attorneys in our state. District Attorney or Judge DiFiore from Westchester County. And District Attorney Hogan from Warren County. That I just had the pleasure of being up in Warren County for the 100th anniversary of the Warren County Bar Association. So, and that was a great event, and so good to have you, D.A. Hogan. I'd also mention, because I see them in my eye line, I can't help it, is the President-elect and the President-elect of the State Bar, Dave Schrager and Glenn Lauke. Okay, I can introduce all of you, but I'm not going to. Even all our, I'm not going to name all our really fighters in the trenches in the legal services community in the second row. They are all wonderful and really, doing it every day in the cause of equal justice. And we thank you for being here. and everybody else is here today. Again, you're all great, and we'd love to see you. So, let me say that we gather here today at a truly historic moment. This year marks the anniversaries of 3 events that have helped define and shape our country, our system of justice, and who we are as Americans. 150 years ago, during the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln issued the most controversial document in his presidency, the Emancipation Proclamation, setting free all slaves within the rebellious states. Although he knew that it was a temporary measure and that only Congress could abolish slavery, the president stated that he felt more certain than anything he had ever done that he was doing right. 100 years later, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King passionately called upon America to live up to the grand promises made in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and ensure that all Americans would be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, regardless of color. That same year, a unanimous Supreme Court, in the landmark case of Gideon versus Wainwright, found it to be an obvious truth that a defendant in a criminal matter cannot get a fair trial without a lawyer, and held that states are required under the Constitution to provide representation in criminal cases for defendants who are unable to afford their own attorneys. All 3 of these events were critical steps forward in our nation's constant pursuit of equal justice for all. This year's Law Day theme, Realizing the Dream, Equality for All, calls upon us to reflect on the underlying significance of these events and to think about what we can do to help realize the dreams that drove pioneers of justice throughout our history and continue to drive us to this day. Dreams are grand declarations, and they are often an essential first step on the path to change and reform. But the real challenge truly lies in translating these ideals into practice, in taking action to give them real meaning. Agreeing on principles to strive towards, even as fundamental as liberty, justice, or equality, can be difficult and nuanced. But taking the steps to make them tangible and give them weight is often even harder and does not happen overnight. Yet making the dream of equality for all a reality is precisely what we are called upon to do and what we must do to fulfill our obligations as a people, as a state, and as a judiciary. The pursuit of justice that is equal and fair for all is our very reason for being. It is what drives us in everything we do. Justice, to be meaningful, must be accessible to all, both rich and poor alike. If we cannot live up to this most basic of principles, we might as well close the courthouse doors. That is why on this Law Day and this 50th anniversary of Gideon, we must resolve to build upon the progress we have made to ensure that all persons accused of a crime in New York, regardless of means, receive competent legal representation. Two years ago, on Law Day, I called upon New York to focus on the national challenge presented by Gideon. I am proud to say that since that time, we have made significant strides upon that long road toward our goal of providing uniform, high-quality representation throughout this state. While there is a pending constitutional challenge to our county-based indigent defense system that will be determined on its legal merits, we can and we must address this issue from a policy perspective now if we are to ensure the fairness and integrity of our system of justice. For the past 2 years, the statewide Indigent Legal Services Board, which I am privileged to chair, aided by the Indigent Legal Services Office, headed by its wonderful executive director, Bill Leahy, and his outstanding staff, have taken up this great challenge. And I believe the wisdom of the legislature and executive branches in creating this first-of-a-kind tripartite board to guide indigent defense efforts in our state has been thoroughly demonstrated by the results achieved and the critical steps we are taking on this Law Day 2013. We have issued standards and criteria for indigent defense lawyers to help ensure quality, uniform, and conflict-free representation at the trial court level, and successfully opened lines of communication with public officials in all three branches of government, as well as with bar associations and the New York State Association of Counties, bringing all players together to forge positive solutions. I made clear the context for these policy solutions in my 2011 speech, when I talked about the shocking fact that in so many more parts of the state, defendants were not represented at arraignment, the first critical stage of the criminal proceeding. The goal I stated at the time was to make representation at arraignment the norm in New York as it is in many parts of the country. While that may have seemed unrealistic or a dream at the time, today that dream is fast becoming the reality in New York. Across our entire state, counsel and arraignment programs are underway in Chautauqua, Erie, Westchester, Tompkins, Ontario, Albany, and Onondaga counties, and have made a substantial impact with well over 5,000 clients receiving representation through these programs. Most importantly today, I am announcing $12 million in grants from the Indigent Legal Services Fund to deliver indigent defense services to defendants at arraignments. Up to 25 counties will be recipients of these grants in urban, rural, and suburban counties throughout our state. The grant funds will allow these counties to find the most efficient and effective ways of reforming the system throughout the state so that each and every person who is arraigned in New York is represented by competent counsel and receives fair, meaningful, and equal justice in our courts. Clarence Earl Gideon proved that everyone is entitled to such representation, and that's exactly what we are trying to accomplish here in New York. I want to thank Governor Cuomo and both houses of the legislature for their support in ensuring that New York meets this basic milestone of criminal defense representation at the first appearance before a judge. Nothing could be more important, and these $12 million in grants will dramatically change the landscape in this state. While addressing this critical priority, if New York is to truly make good on the promise of Gideon and provide counsel that is effective and meaningful, we must also address the problem of chronically overburdened public defenders. New York had a major breakthrough in this area 4 years ago, following the passage of landmark legislation in 2009 calling for caseload limits for defense lawyers. Pursuant to the statute, the state judiciary adopted new court rules to establish appropriate caseload standards for attorneys who represent indigent criminal defendants in New York City. Notably, unique in this country, the judiciary, supported by the legislative and executive branches, has funded this vital effort, which has dramatically eased crippling burdens on public defenders and markedly improved the quality of representation for low-income defendants in the city. As a result of the new case cap limits, hundreds of additional lawyers, investigators, and support staff have been hired. Illustrative of the impact is that the annual average weighted caseload of the legal aid societies criminal defense lawyers in New York City has been reduced from 682 at the time of the law's implementation to 517 as of November 2012. In practice, the change is even more dramatic. As assigned lawyers have more face-to-face interaction with clients and far more time and resources to investigate and prepare a competent defense. With more manageable caseloads, lawyers are in a much better position to secure just outcomes for their clients, which is in the best interests of defendants, the courts, and the entire criminal justice system. This is a great accomplishment, and we are proud of it. But we need to afford the same type of relief to upstate attorneys and their clients who face similarly daunting workloads and resource shortages. It is simply a matter of fundamental fairness. To assist with caseload reduction, the Indigent Legal Services Office has made funding available to hire over 50 additional attorneys in counties outside New York City and distributed $1.3 million in additional resources to fund additional investigative and expert services, over $600,000 to support training and research, and over $900,000 to fund technology and other office upgrades. And now, the ILS board has approved a competitive grant totaling another $12 million over 3 years to support local initiatives aimed at substantially reducing excessive caseloads and improving the quality of representation in upstate New York. Significantly, the 2013-2014 budget that was enacted into law effective April 1 includes additional funding that enables a multi-year program and constitutes a major breakthrough. This grant program is critical to bringing upstate caseloads and the quality of representation to a level consistent with the ethos of Gideon. It will allow upstate counties to parallel the enormous progress made in New York City under the 2009 legislation. The steps that we are taking to ensure meaningful criminal defense representation in all parts of our state are what the promise of Gideon is all about, the basic fairness of our criminal justice system. This goes to the very heart of our constitutional mission, to foster equal justice for all New Yorkers, regardless of means. The lack of effective legal assistance can unbalance the scales of justice and devastate the lives of real human beings and their families. As those responsible for the fair and equal administration of justice, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that justice is truly being done in our courthouses and that the playing field is leveled for all New Yorkers, a fundamental premise that all of us in the justice system fervently believe in. One need only scan the national commentary this past March on the progress made in the 50 years after Gideon to be reminded that there is still much work to be done in this critical area. Just yesterday, a New York Times editorial reported on the deeply troubling situation in Louisiana, where the state's public defender board has acknowledged that financing of indigent defense is at only 80% of the minimum amount needed, and as a result, the provision of qualified counsel to every eligible defendant is simply, this is a quote, unattainable. This cannot be allowed to happen in New York. As we strive to achieve uniformity in the provision and quality of indigent defense services statewide, we must develop sound public policies to ensure a vision for the future of indigent defense in our state that builds upon the advances we have made and is sustainable in the long run. We have reason to be greatly encouraged. We cannot and will not allow Gideon, arguably the greatest achievement in the history of our nation's criminal justice system, to become an empty promise. Speaking at the Justice Department's 50th anniversary celebration of Gideon, which I was privileged to attend, United States Attorney General Eric Holder perhaps put it best when he said, "In the end, this may be the single most important legacy of Gideon, that it serves as a reminder of the obligation entrusted to every legal professional, not merely to serve clients or to win cases, but to do justice." On this Law Day 2013, we renew our commitment to pursue justice under the rule of law for all New Yorkers. And make no mistake, by doing so, we will realize the dream, equality for all. Thank you so much. Before I introduce the Attorney General, I did fail to introduce three very, very, very important people who are here today, who are the presiding justices of three of our four appellate departments. Justice Luis Gonzalez, presiding justice of First. Justice Randall Eng, presiding justice of the Second Judicial Department. And Justice Karen Peters, presiding justice right here of the Third Department. I'd also note that we have all of our administrative judges here. Judge Prudenti is going to have a meeting this afternoon. And rather than introduce all 342 of them, they're here. Take it from me. Welcome. Okay. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Attorney General of the State of New York, who we always talk about being partners in justice, and let me tell you, this is a great partner. Someone whose really only agenda is the pursuit of justice. He has been a leader in this country of fighting for equal justice and the rights and liberties of all persons. He is on the front lines, whether it's foreclosures or gun violence or discrimination or taking on powerful interests. He in every way doing all of this while enforcing the rule of law, which is the foundation of our society and our way of life. I have such great respect, admiration, and affection for him, and I am so delighted to introduce to you today the Attorney General of the State of New York, Eric T. Schneiderman.
Thank you so much, Judge Lippman, for your kind words, your wise words. It's great to be in a law partnership where everyone is a pro bono partner. And I have to say that not just in New York, but people all over the country really are indebted to you for your leadership, particularly in the cause of closing what we call the justice gap. And the funding and the programs that you outlined here today further cement your role as a national leader in the movement to secure equal justice for all. I also want to thank Chief Administrative Judge Gail Prudenti, First Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Lawrence Marks, Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Fern Fisher, and our great President of the Bar Association, Seymour James, and all of my colleagues who are here in law and in the quest for justice, my Solicitor General Barbara Underwood and others from the Attorney General's office. I am always not just honored, but kind of excited to be here on Law Day, because it is something that, as a lawyer, I take tremendous pride in our legal system, and when I speak at law school graduations, I challenge young lawyers not to accept any of the jokes about practicing law, that they are in the greatest of all traditions, in the tradition of doing justice and the American tradition of seeking to expand the definition of justice to make us a more inclusive, more equal society with every generation is really one of the greatest traditions of humankind. And it is appropriate and really inspiring that this year's anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech is the theme for today, provides a theme for us today. It is a speech that really was extraordinary in many respects. And I want to expand on what Judge Lippman talked about and remind you that another part of his legacy, and in fact this speech, was Dr. King's commitment to economic justice. The March on Washington he was attending 50 years ago was called the March for Jobs and Freedom. It was aimed at overcoming the twin evils of discrimination and economic deprivation. Those are his words. And in the last years of his life, Dr. King increasingly turned his attention to the problem of economic inequality and was working with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference on a new mass mobilization known as the Poor People's Campaign. 1 year before Dr. King delivered the famous speech at the March on Washington, he noted the inequality in our country, and at that time, the family in the top 1% of U.S. households had about 125 times the wealth of the median household. Dr. King stated, quote, "God never intended for one group of people to live in superfluous, inordinate wealth while others live in abject, deadening poverty." And as you probably know, the gap has gotten much greater since then. A household in the top 1% today averages about 288 times the wealth of the median household. And in my office, in our work in the law, it's important that in addition to combating injustice based on discrimination against people of color or based on gender or based on sexual orientation, we have to, in all areas of law, from health care to education to public safety, see that our commitment to a level playing field extends to the area of economic justice. Every year, it seems that Judge Lippman, and I'm proud to join him in doing that again this year, announces a further commitment to ensuring that the funds are available for us to truly do justice on an equal basis. But in America as a whole, certainly at the federal level, the need for criminal and civil legal services funding has far outstripped our political will to deliver. So as we join together in our partnership to fight against this trend, this growing trend of inequality and the growing trend of inequality in many institutions in American life, I think it's important for us to remember that when Dr. King's set the theme for this year's Law Day, which is realizing the dream, equality for all, it has to include all aspects of our cultural and social life. So I want to return to the day when New York was the proud leader in pioneering progressive reforms before they were adopted at the federal level. Everything from labor laws to social insurance to securities laws. I do not vote for laws anymore, but it is my responsibility to enforce them and to enforce them creatively and come up with approaches. I aspire to be as creative as our Chief Judge, but to come up with approaches to expanding equality and expanding justice with particular sensitivity to economic inequality today. I will give you a few examples of how we're seeking to ensure true justice for all in three specific areas that Dr. King personally championed: justice in the workplace, justice in the courts, and justice at the ballot box. We have expanded the activities of our Labor Bureau with a view to dealing with the fact that many folks are simply not paid what they're deserved in today's society. We have expanded our network of whistleblowers. We have expanded our ability to bring criminal cases. And in too many cases in New York, every day, money that people earn is stolen by their employers, people who fail to pay the minimum wage or overtime or who violate prevailing wage laws. We have cracked down on this and are bringing cases more regularly and more aggressively than we ever have. it is important to prevent these workers from being harmed. It is also important to make honest employers able to compete on a level playing field with the unscrupulous. It is important for all of us, not just for the specific workers we may help in a particular case. In one case, we secured a sentence of 4 months in jail and $800,000 in restitution for workers from a contractor who failed to pay the prevailing wage. In another case, very recently, we secured almost $1 million in back wages for 30 workers who were illegally underpaid. In some of these cases, employers would drive the workers to banks, force them to cash their checks, and then kick back money to the employer. And we've taken a strong stand, not just in court on this, but publicly, to make sure that we send the message to all employers that wage theft is really not different from car theft. It shouldn't be counted as a smart business practice by anyone in the state of New York. The Wage Theft Prevention Act, which the Assembly and the Senate passed and the governor signed, is a great source of justice, and our office is enforcing it vigorously. We have obtained settlements, including major settlements for retaliation against workers who seek to organize or seek to blow the whistle on corrupt employers. I hope that we're making a difference in the lives of the workers involved, but I hope we're also sending a message that in New York, businesses that play by the rules and follow the law are never going to be at a disadvantage because we don't go after those who refuse to do so. The second area, and housing justice was a major issue that Dr. King spoke about fervently and frequently. We are continuing our efforts to ensure equal justice for homeowners who are still struggling to avoid foreclosure in the wake of the collapsed housing bubble. It is easy to forget how only a few short years ago the American wealth gap exploded when we lost $7.4 trillion in home equity in the crash of 2008. The unfortunate truth is that African American and Latino households were hit harder because more of their wealth was, in fact, in their home equity. An astonishing 80% of the household wealth of the average African American household was lost. And the median Latino family lost about 2/3. We are working and have been working to help protect people and help to get people out of the trouble that they are in with mortgages that never should have been issued. So we are taking a lead, I'm proud to say, nationally, in ensuring that no New Yorker is ever foreclosed on or ever loses their home because they do not have access to an attorney. Last year, at this time, I told you that we had dedicated $15 million from our office's settlement of a major series of cases against some banks to extend foreclosure prevention legal services that were about to be gutted in the state budget. This year, I am pleased to report that we have committed an additional $60 million over 3 years to create a homeowner protection program funding 34 legal services organizations and 59 housing counseling agencies in every corner of the state to ensure that homeowners have help in negotiating with banks for modifications and rate reductions that they are entitled to. In just the first 5 months of reporting, 7,400 New York families have been counseled through our homeowner protection program, and about 35% of those have already received commitments to write down their principal, adjust rates, or otherwise enable these New Yorkers to stay in their homes. The next critical step is to let more New Yorkers know that help is available. To do that, we've created a statewide consumer hotline. We have public service announcements going out now in English and Spanish. We look forward to many thousands more families working with our network of legal service providers and housing counselors so that we can ensure equal justice when they're dealing with big financial institutions and equal justice when they're in court. And Judge Lippman and Judge Prudeni and others have really gone above and beyond what any other, I have to fairly say, court administration has done in any other state to ensure that people can get a fair hearing and ensure that equal justice under law is applicable for homeowners in the state of New York and every part of our state. I want to make sure that we follow through on that. And one of the things that we hope to address this legislative session is dealing with the problem of the so-called shadow docket and make sure that we can ensure that when the chief judge wants everyone to get to the table with authority to negotiate and wants to make sure people get justice, that any effort to sneak around a Lippman program is thwarted, called out, and shamed in public. So finally, let me mention something that I was privileged to stand with the Assembly Speaker and Judge Yates and others yesterday to speak about. We have to expand our commitment to equal justice at the ballot box, and that does require the expenditure of funds. Again, economic justice is important, but nothing is more essential than a vibrant democracy. And yesterday, we stood in support of a bill to ensure early voting in the state of New York so that everyone gets to vote. And I have a very simple principle which I urge all of you to embrace, because we get a lot of strange arguments in this area, and we are facing a new wave of voter suppression strategies that to me are anti-American and anti-democratic. Laws that make it easier for qualified voters to register and to vote are good laws. Laws that make it harder for qualified voters to register and vote are bad laws. Very simple principle. So my office started out in this area when we realized that there were real problems with language access efforts, and we have reached agreements, I'm happy to say, with all the different boards of elections that we were pursuing in different parts of the state to ensure that in areas with significant Spanish-speaking populations, everyone is complying with the Voting Rights Act requirements, and bilingual materials are now available in every county that we have had to pursue. Several of the counties agreed immediately voluntarily. We've worked it out with the rest of them. And guaranteeing access to the polls, guaranteeing access to materials in the language you speak, having the ability to go without interfering with your job or taking time off or the stress and strain of getting there on one election day when you may face very long lines, these are basics to making our democracy work. And I am very proud of the fact that we are continuing in New York, and the reform proposals that are coming forth this legislative session have to be followed through on, ladies and gentlemen. We have to make it easier to register, easier to vote, easier to run for office, and keep our democracy vibrant. Everyone voting, in my view, is the best way to ensure that laws that truly represent all the people, that the equal justice under law Dr. King spoke about, that the equality in the area of racial justice, gender justice, justice regarding sexual orientation, and centrally economic life, that justice is done for all. The best insurers of that are the people of the state of New York, and I hope you will join me in opening the ballot box, opening our election process so that more people can compete and that everyone gets a chance to have their voice heard. We know the struggle for equal justice is not won in one generation, but I believe in progress. That's why I am a progressive. And the quintessentially American ideal of greater freedom, greater justice, greater equality with each successive generation has been really pursued with great energy and great creativity by so many prior generations. I am honored to be a part of a partnership which seeks to make sure that our generation lives up to that commitment and lives up to that duty, and that we do leave New York more just, more equal, and more fair than it was when we got here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your inspiring remarks, Attorney General Schneiderman, and it is a delight to have you as our partner, and in your capable hands, I know that justice is being done in this state, and we're honored to have you here today. We're also honored to have the president of the New York State Bar Association here with us today. In his other life, the head of the Criminal Division of the Legal Aid Society. I don't think Steve Banks has been getting much out of him during the last year in that other role, but he is doing very, very important work. And he has dedicated himself as the State Bar President to the fight against wrongful convictions, to ensuring legal representation for the poor in civil and criminal cases, fighting for diversity in our profession, and to ensuring that the State Bar is the leader in the country in understanding the professional and ethical responsibilities of bar membership. It's been a delight for me personally to work with President James for the last year. He really has been a tremendous source of support and assistance for all of us in the courts. And when we talk of justice partners, I think the State Bar Association, under your wonderful leadership, has really stepped up to the plate, and we're all so happy to have you here and honored to have you here today. So, Seymour, you want to come up?
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Judge Lippman. And thanks for all you do to ensure access to justice to New Yorkers. You're recognized nationally as a champion of equal justice, and we really thank you. Judge Lippman, judges of the Court of Appeals, Attorney General Schneiderman, Chief Administrative Judge Prudenti, Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Marks, Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Fisher, and all the distinguished judges, other public servants, attorneys, and guests who have joined us today. It's an honor to join in celebrating Law Day, a day focused on celebrating the rule of law and the central role of our justice system in our free society and democratic way of life. I can think of no more appropriate setting than this beautiful courthouse to celebrate the law, the legal profession, and the judges who work so hard every day to provide access to justice. As Chief Judge Lippman indicated, this year marks the 150th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation and the 50th anniversary of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s delivery of the historic I Have a Dream speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial. These two anniversaries provide a dramatic backdrop for Law Day 2013 and a thought-provoking theme for this year's celebration, realizing the dream, equality for all. Any discussion of the struggle for civil rights is inherently complex. Today we have an African-American president who 150 years ago may well have been held in slavery. And in 1963, at the time of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, but yet to see a post-Reconstruction African-American United States senator or state governor, much less a person of color, as president. So we recognize and appreciate the tremendous progress that we have made as a society. But at the same time, we must acknowledge that we have not yet achieved full equality under the law. The Emancipation Proclamation and the work of Dr. King are momentous symbols of our progress, but they also represent a continuing call to action, to remain aware of persistent injustice and to use whatever tools we can to fight discrimination and promote equality. Our nation eradicated the legal slave trade nearly 150 years ago, but today human trafficking continues to pose a terrible affront to human rights in the United States and around the globe. We have eliminated Jim Crow laws, but discrimination persists against people of color and other disadvantaged and marginalized groups. Historically underrepresented groups continue to face systemic obstacles and inequality in obtaining jobs and advancing in their careers, in spite of laws prohibiting employment discrimination. We continue to see cases that demonstrate the existence of racism in housing determinations and lending practices. Racial disparity in bail decisions and sentencing continues to plague us across the country. And despite the enactment of many protections for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals, we continue to fight for full recognition of their relationships and other fundamental rights. This year's Law Day theme encourages us to consider the Emancipation Proclamation and Dr. King's famous speech not only as important milestones in our nation's history, but also as a challenge to remain mindful of the progress yet to be made and to continue working toward equality for all. As attorneys, we have a special responsibility to promote equal rights for all Americans. With that fundamental goal in mind, we at the State Bar are working to realize the dream in a number of ways. We have established committees and task forces to study human trafficking, diversity in the legal profession, LGBT rights, and gender equity. Our Special Committee on Human Trafficking later this year will release its report and recommendations to ensure fair treatment of victims, strict punishment of traffickers, and other measures to eliminate this form of modern-day slavery. We were proud to provide our unique legal perspective in the fight for marriage equality in New York State. We continue to support equality for same-sex couples nationwide through our opposition to the Defense of Marriage Act. Although New York is one of a growing number of states that have embraced marriage equality, DOMA allows states to disregard same-sex marriages lawfully performed in our states as well as other states. DOMA also permits the federal government to deny same-sex couples thousands of federal rights, protections, and benefits granted to other married couples. These include filing joint income tax returns, transferring an estate to a spouse without tax consequences, and receiving spousal Social Security benefits, just to name a few. Law Day also provides an important opportunity to honor and celebrate the rule of law and its essential role in maintaining a free and just society and pursuing the dream of equality for all. This occasion reminds us that our ability to realize the dream depends on the effectiveness of our justice system and respect for the rule of law. The State Bar is continuously working to be more representative of our profession and our society, and the legal community is making strides to improve diversity and inclusion. In order to maintain the legitimacy of our justice system, the bench and bar must reflect changing demographics and our increasingly multicultural society. A diverse legal profession allows us to be more responsive to our communities, bolsters respect for the rule of law, and engenders trust in our courts and their rulings by the communities they serve. Our generation has seen more women, people of color, LGBT individuals, and people from various ethnic, religious, socioeconomic, geographic, and other diverse backgrounds in the legal profession than at any other time in our history. However, we can still see the long-lasting effect of discrimination in our profession. In our increasingly diverse nation, and even in our own state, the legal profession does not look like our society. From law schools to bar associations to law firms and other practice settings, diversity and inclusion must be an ongoing and multifaceted goal. At the State Bar, we believe it is our responsibility to set an example and use our role as a large bar association to support diversity in the law. We have embraced diversity as an official association policy and increased the diversity of our governing bodies to ensure that a variety of backgrounds and perspectives are represented in our work. In 2011, we kicked off an initiative called the President's Section Diversity Challenge to encourage our entities to develop and execute specific plans to improve their diversity. This year, we are kicking off a new association-wide mentoring initiative. We are thrilled that retired Court of Appeals Judge Carmen Beauchamp-Saparic has agreed to co-chair the project, along with our incoming President-elect, Glenn Lau Key. This focus on diversity is not only for the benefit of our profession, it also helps to ensure that our justice system is equipped to continue pursuing the dream of equality for all. I'm confident that we all share these core values, and we at the State Bar welcome opportunities to work together with our colleagues in the courts, our government, and the private sector to improve the law and enhance access to justice and diversity in our profession. I appreciate this opportunity to join you today on Law Day to speak on behalf of the State Bar Association and celebrate the enormous progress we have made in realizing Dr. King's dream. But we still have a ways to go. We must continue our effort to fulfill his dream by striving for full equality for all in our society, being ever mindful of Dr. King's warning that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Seymour, and thank you for your really wonderful year as the president of the State Bar. Your leadership is really so much appreciated by all of us. So thank you, Seymour. And the next person I'm going to introduce, I'm really going to turn over the rest of the program to her, is someone who, without her leadership, the court system really couldn't function. She runs the operations of the state courts with skill, expertise, humanity, and grace. She is a terrific judge, a terrific administrator, and I am so grateful for all she does 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to keep this court system going. Not so easy. And for all of her efforts towards our ultimate goal, which is the pursuit of justice. So Judge Prudenti will be assisted by First Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Lawrence Marks, and New York City Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Fern Fisher, and also the head of our statewide Access to Justice program. And I thank both of you for your wonderful jobs that you've done. Judge Prudenti, the rest of the program is yours.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Chief Judge Littman, for that very, very kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Many of you may not know, but I am married to a lawyer who's in private practice, and we've been married for more than 34 years and built a wonderful life together. And very early this morning, about 5 o'clock, we were getting ready, and he was getting ready to do a reverse commute to the office in Suffolk County, and I was getting ready to come here to Albany. And we woke up, and I said to Robert, "Happy Law Day." And he looked at me and he said, "You know, Gail, I think I'm probably the only lawyer in the United States who gets a Happy Law Day from their wife." But Happy Law Day, everyone. But in keeping with the annual Court of Appeals tradition, we gather this Law Day, joining thousands of other Americans around the United States in celebrating our nation's really prized rule of law. Today, we also pay tribute to 6 individuals for their outstanding contributions to the judiciary and to their communities. I have to tell you that I am very, very pleased that I am the individual that gets to present these 2 judicial awards to 2 very, very highly thought of judges of the New York State court system. One recipient will receive our Distinguished Jurist Award, and the other recipient will receive our Lifetime Achievement Award. Later in the program, you will hear from my first deputy, a gentleman that I talk to every day and depend on, the First Deputy Chief Administrative Judge of the Courts of the State of New York, Lawrence Marks, who will present the court system's Merit Performance Awards to 4 exemplary non-judicial employees. I also wish to extend my gratitude to all of our administrative judges, the 2 deputy chief administrative judges, and all our non-judicial employees for their hard work and perseverance, especially in these challenging physical times. And a personal and heartfelt thanks to our visionary Chief Judge Littman, the judges of the Court of Appeals who I hold in such high regard, the presiding justices who hold a very special place in my heart, once a presiding justice, always a presiding justice, the New York State Attorney General, Eric T. Schneiderman, who I shared a story with this morning, because very, very recently, one of my cousins who is a retired physical education teacher said to me, "Gail, do you know Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General?" I said, "Yes, I've had the pleasure of meeting him on a number of occasions." She says, "Is he really as good a person as he sounds in the newspapers?" I said, "Well, all I can tell you is he's a really nice guy." And then, of course, there's my dear friend and a friend of one of my very best friends, the president of the New York State Bar Association, Seymour W. James, Jr. And I thank each and every one of you for your support of this Law Day Awards celebration. So now for the 2013 Distinguished Jurist Award goes to a family court judge. And I know those who have served in the family court and those who have been administrative judges and serve in this administration know that being a family court judge is one of the most difficult positions one could hold in the New York State Unified Court System. Our distinguished jurist today comes from the Queens County Family Court, and she is Judge Mary Beth Richroth, and she is the ultimate multitasker. In addition to her day-to-day challenges, which are many, she has an amazingly busy family court calendar herself. Judge Richroth leads a variety of committees, tireless efforts to enhance the processing of child protective and other critical family court matters. Among her many, and there are many, extracurricular duties, she chairs a wide range of advisory committees, both citywide and on behalf of our administrative judge of the family courts for the city of New York, who's with us today, the wonderful Judge Edwina Richardson Mendelson. Judge, it's great to see you and have you here, and I know you are so proud, as I am, of our distinguished jurist. This jurist, at the present time, is working on a citywide advisory committee, and it's of a very large size, and people from all different walks of life. But Mary Beth is one of those people who's able to bring about consensus, address concerns, and harness many talents. And it's really resulted in a fabulous resource guide to aid family court judges in their oversight of some of the most difficult and highly complex matters that come to our court system, people who come to us at some of the most difficult times in their lives. Judge Richroth, her leadership, her keen judgment, her tireless determination have been an asset to us all, especially a citywide group that is working on expanding best practices and is looking to implement systematic child welfare reforms. Since her appointment to the New York Family Court bench in 2001, this judge has generously devoted her time and efforts to numerous initiatives supporting the very best interests of the children and families served by the court, at the very same time keeping up a very heavy family court caseload. It is my pleasure to honor her, and I hope you will join me in honoring her with the 2013 Distinguished Jurist Award for her exemplary leadership and judicial service. Please, Judge. The 2013 Lifetime Achievement Award goes to a gentleman who, if there is such a thing still as encyclopedias, if there was a picture of a gentleman and a scholar, this would be the individual. This judge holds a very, very special place in my heart. He is the Honorable Thomas E. McCure. Judge McCure is highly regarded for his legal acumen and steadfast devotion to the pursuit of justice. Thomas McCure has served the unified court system admirably for over 30 years, 25 of them on the Appellate Division 3rd Department bench, making him the longest-serving justice in that department's 117-year proud history. He also led the department as the acting presiding justice in 2011 and 2012 during the illness and subsequent passing of the late presiding justice, Anthony Cardona. Just this past January, and it's still hard for me to believe, he graciously agreed to step into his newest role as an administrative judge of the 3rd Judicial District, using some of the techniques that I have learned from our chief judge. I somehow talked him into accepting this challenging position. undoubtedly the district will benefit greatly from his vast knowledge and foresight. A Court of Appeals nominee who temporarily sat on the High Court in 1994, and in 2011, we had the privilege of sitting together on the High Court as well. Although we saw the case somewhat differently, I think it proves that people can disagree. People of goodwill can disagree without being disagreeable. Justice McCure has worn many hats over the course of a very distinguished career. He started in private practice. He subsequently joined the Washington County District Attorney's Office, serving first as its first assistant district attorney and then as the county's district attorney. Justice McCure was first elected to the state Supreme Court in 1981 and then reelected in 1995 and again in 2009. Throughout his tenure, he has lent his time and talents to so many various committees, too many to mention. But I just would like to mention that he was the chair of the State Ethics Commission of the Unified Court System from 1996 to 2003. Justice McCure's contributions to the New York courts and the legal community are significant and many. In recognition of his long-standing judicial service, as a chief judge would say, I am absolutely delighted to present him with this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. Justice McCure. Heartfelt congratulations to both of these distinguished jurists. I will now turn over the program to the First Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the Courts of the State of New York, Lawrence Marks, to present the 2013 Merit Performance Award.
Thank you, Judge Prudenti. We really have a terrific workforce in the state court system, and whenever we have the opportunity to recognize our employees, we like to do that. And one of the great opportunities is Law Day, where we have a tradition of recognizing some of our distinguished employees who have distinguished themselves not just in the courts but in the community as well. So it's really my honor to be able to present 4 awards today. The first award is an award for superior work performance, which goes to Tracy Catapano-Fox, who's the Chief Clerk of Queens County Supreme Court. Tracy Catapano-Fox's passion for the law and helping people is apparent from the moment you meet her. The former prosecutor, law clerk, and Queens County Women's Bar Association president, the youngest ever in the county, has served as chief clerk of the busy Queens County Supreme Court civil term since 2011. An expert on residential foreclosures, Tracy helped establish the state's first residential foreclosure settlement conference part at the Queens Court, with the goal of these statutorily mandated conferences to achieve mortgage modifications and keep people in their homes. Besides coordinating a busy foreclosure part calendar, Tracy works with court administrators to develop policies and procedures to improve the handling of foreclosure matters, also sharing her expertise on the subject at judicial education seminars and bar association events. Additionally, she played an instrumental role in the development of the Queens Court's specialized parts for guardianship and matrimonial matters. Even with her myriad responsibilities, she consistently goes out of her way to provide guidance and assistance to court colleagues and the public. Tracy's innovative stewardship as chief clerk of one of the state's busiest civil courts is commendable, and her dedicated efforts on behalf of the Unified Court System and legal profession extraordinary. And I actually have had an opportunity to work directly with Tracy in her role as chief clerk, and she really is a terrific employee. So I'm delighted to honor her with the 2013 Merit Performance Award for superior work performance. The second award is also an award for superior work performance, which goes to Cecilia Barine, who is a law library assistant in Onondaga County Supreme Court. Cecilia Barine regularly goes beyond the scope of her duties as law library assistant at the Supreme Court Law Library in Onondaga County. Joining the law library in 1999, Cecilia was quickly recognized by library patrons and employees alike for her can-do attitude and unfailing courtesy. Her outstanding work ethic and other admirable qualities have since been noted by many throughout the 5th Judicial District. Cecilia and her library colleagues were recently called on to provide records management support to other courts in the 5th Judicial District. She took a leading role in that effort, bringing together the district's employees and technological resources to move this project forward with remarkable efficiency. Over the years, she has played a key part in a variety of law library and court system projects. Presently, she serves as the CIFA United Way coordinator for the 5th District, a responsibility that requires patience and strong planning and communication skills, all Cecilia's strengths. Cecilia's upbeat outlook and meticulous attention to detail come across in everything she does, whether assisting law library patrons, taking on special projects, or responding to inquiries via the court system's telephone information line, 1-800-COURT-NY. It is my pleasure to present her with the 2013 Merit Performance Award for superior work performance. Next is an award for community service in humanitarian pursuits, which goes to Lucille Mallard, who is a resource coordinator in Canandaigua City Court. There simply aren't enough hours in the day for Lucille Mallard. Between her duties as a drug treatment court resource coordinator and innumerable other volunteer activities in her home city of Geneva and the surrounding Finger Lakes region, Lucille is recognized locally and beyond as a dedicated community leader and human rights advocate, with her good work spanning a range of organizations aiding youngsters, the needy, and other underserved populations. Lucille, the president of the Geneva chapter of the NAACP for the past 25 years, considers community service a way of life, devoting the better part of hers to fostering racial and ethnic tolerance and helping women and minorities forge paths of leadership. She also travels to local middle and high schools to highlight the dangers of alcohol and substance abuse, sharing with students the knowledge and wisdom acquired over her 30-plus years in the field. A positive force for change, Lucille has a unique gift for uniting people of diverse backgrounds and beliefs, giving a voice to the disadvantaged and motivating youngsters to achieve their full potential. In appreciation of Lucille's selfless service to her local community and humankind, I am delighted to present her with this year's Merit Performance Award for community service and humanitarian pursuits. And And finally is the 2013 Law Day Award for Heroism, which goes to Sergeant Edward Cassidy, who's a court officer in the Suffolk County Courts. Sergeant Edward Cassidy's bravery and quick thinking proved invaluable on a late afternoon last September when the off-duty court officer observed a violent domestic dispute at a gas station parking lot. Sergeant Cassidy alerted the town of Southold Police Department, and upon the arrival of a local police officer, Officer Salmon, he directed the police officer to the perpetrator who had fled into a wooded area. When Officer Salmon caught up with the perpetrator, the man became extremely combative. A confrontation ensued, with Officer Salmon sensing someone running up behind him and realizing that Sergeant Cassidy had been following throughout the chase. As Officer Salmon struggled with the perpetrator and the offender tried to dislodge Officer Salmon's gun from its holster, Sergeant Cassidy helped Officer Salmon wrestle the man to the ground and handcuff him. Town of Southold Police Department Chief Martin Flatley, in a letter commending Sergeant Cassidy for his actions that afternoon, wrote, "I have no doubt in my mind that if Sergeant Cassidy had not taken the initiative to follow this pursuit and jumped in to assist Officer Salmon, the outcome could well have been tragic." So we are most fortunate to count Sergeant Cassidy among the court's highly trained corps of officers. His courage and sharp instincts were critical in averting a potential tragedy that day. It is a privilege to honor Sergeant Cassidy with this year's Merit Performance Award for Heroism. It's now my pleasure to turn the program over to Judge Fisher, who will present the Garfinkel Essay Awards.
Good afternoon, Chief Judge, Mr. Attorney General, Mr. President, Judge Prudenti, and Judge Marks, one and all. It is always a pleasure to present this award, and it is an award that is presented by the Historical Society of the Courts of the State of New York, and is called the 2013 David A. Garfinkel Essay Award. Our topic this year, cyberspace and the law. What are our rights and responsibilities? A very timely topic, and I urge you to read all of the essays. I'm going to start off with doing the honorable mentions, and these are from various community colleges. Now, this year, there were two pools of competition, the CUNY schools and the SUNY schools. And then a grand prize winner was chosen from both pools. So this is a little bit different this year. Our honorable mention winners this year, Hazani Abdulkader from Queensborough Community College, Professor Christina Mooney, who's the advisor, Benjamin Barry from Genesee Community College, Professor Charles Scruggs, advisor, Christy Diaz, Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Mooney, advisor, Gina Giovanni, Westchester Community College, Professor David Wedlick, advisor. Jensen Espinoza, Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Mooney, advisor. She's very active. Robert Johnson, Monroe Community College, Professor Elizabeth Clifford, advisor. Beatrice La Viscount, Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Mooney, advisor. Daniel Vincent Morano, Adirondack Community College, Professor John W. Arpey, advisor. Christian Myers, Borough of Manhattan Community College, Professor Andrew Gottlieb, advisor. Farah Naz, Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Mooney, advisor. Diane Notar, Erie Community College, instructor Aaron Thomas. Sarah Shabazada, Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Mooney, advisor. Nicholas Van Nostrand, Fulton, Montgomery Community College, Professor Stephen Ostman, and instructor Theodore Morato, advisors. Let us congratulate those individuals. the three prize winners come forward, please? Regardless of the professions these individuals will choose, they will make a difference in this world. And this is just the start. Our recipient of the SUNY Community College Prize is Zachary Fields. His faculty advisor, David Hines, Professor Hines, will you stand up? Oh, he had to teach. All right, so he is not present in the courtroom, so he's doing what he does well. I apologize. Zachary was born in Syracuse and attended Janesville DeWitt High School. He is currently attending Onondaga Community College and is interested in social justice and human rights. You'd like to hear that, right, Chief Judge? In his future career, he hopes to advance the causes of equality and justice. Zachary's essay is entitled Reason and Privacy, Applying the Fourth Amendment in the Digital Age. Zachary, congratulations. Our CUNY Community College Prize winner, I understand, prefers to be called Ruby, and your first name is pronounced Gayatri? Gayatri Singh. From Queensborough Community College, Professor Christine Money, who unfortunately is not in the courtroom because undoubtedly she's teaching and advising her students. But the college is represented by Dr. Jonas Salek and Professor John Luby. Will you please stand? Ruby, whose parents came to the United States from Guyana in South America, was born in Brooklyn and raised in Queens. She will graduate from Queensborough Community College with an Associate's of Science in Business Administration in May of 2013. In the fall of 2013, she will enroll in Baruch College, Zicklin School of Business, and will major in finance and investments with a minor in business law. Ruby's essay is entitled Personal Privacy versus Digital Lives. Congratulations, Ruby. And our grand prize winner, 77 students from SUNY and CUNY community colleges throughout the state participated in the competitions. 40 members of CUNY and SUNY faculties mentored them. And with all of those essays, Joshua Polakowski, his essay was the best. He has lived in Bosville, New York his entire life. He first attended Mohawk Valley Community College in 2006, graduating in 2009 with an associate's degree in illustration. He is now enrolled in the International Studies program and may pursue a degree in philosophy, politics, and law at Binghamton University. He was mentored during this process by Professor David R. Katz III. Is he the president today? He's here. Congratulations, sir. In the future, Joshua hopes to use writing to address various social and political issues, and he clearly can write. His essay was entitled A Slow Eclipse, the Fourth Amendment in the Age of Counterterrorism. Our grand prize winner, Joshua. To the faculty members and the friends and families that supported our winners, congratulations to you as well.
Michelle? This is our favorite court attendant.
God bless America. 'America, let it stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains, through the prairies, through the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
In the words of our Chief Administrative Judge, happy Law Day. Thank you, everybody.